Okay guys, in this section we're looking at the law of sines, and so up to this point we have used the trig functions to solve missing parts of a right triangle. And so up to this point we've only been able to utilize those trig functions in solving right triangles. But now with the law of sines we can actually solve the missing sides and angles in a triangle even when it's not a right triangle. So it doesn't have to be a right triangle in order to solve these missing sides with the law of sines, and we're going to kind of show you how to do that now. And so here's kind of a breakdown of the certain parts that you need to have in order to use the law of sines. And in 5.9 we're going to learn about the law of cosines as well, and so this kind of just breaks down what parts when to use which one of the laws based on which parts you have in the triangle, which three parts. And so if you've got two angles and any side, then you can use the law of sines. If you have two sides and an angle opposite from one of those sides, like this pattern, side, side, angle, then you can use law of sines. And if you've got all three sides, or you've got two sides and the included angle, you would have to use law of cosines. Okay, so that kind of just is a quick breakdown of when to use which law. So in this section we're focused on the law of sines, and here's what it states. Okay, so it says if you have triangle ABC and then the sides A, B, and C, of course you know how a triangle is written out. The side is across from the angle, right? The lowercase letter side is across from the capital letter angle, kind of as illustrated up here, right? Side A is across from angle A, side B is across from angle B, and so on. And so here's the proportion that arises for law of sines. Okay, A over sine of A equals B over sine of B equals C over sine of C. Or you can take the reciprocal of that, and it's also still true. Okay? So what do some of the problems look like here that we're going to use this law with? All right, so suppose I have this triangle right here. So they've given me three parts, right? They've given me two of the angles, and they have given me one of the sides. Two of the angles, one of the sides. All right? So just kind of going back here, as long as I have angle, angle, side, then I can use the law of sines. Now, here's my first step in solving this. Okay, what we need to do first here is, since we have two of the angles, we can find the third one, because remember from geometry, all three angles inside of a triangle add up to 180. So the first thing I'm going to do here is do 180 minus 102.3 minus 28.7 and get 49. Alright, so we can get that third angle as 49 degrees. Now they all three add up to 180. And so we need to find the remaining angle and sides. So that's how we find the remaining angle. So the measure of angle A equals 49. Alright, so we got that part. So we're good there. And there's going to be a lot of work on this example, so I'm going to go ahead and box my answers so that when we go to find our answer we don't have to look through all this stuff. Alright, so the next thing that we can kind of put our focus on is, let's see if we can find the measure of side A. Because we have side B, we have all three angles now, I just need to find side A and side C. Alright, so when you're going to set up with the law of sines, okay, what you need to kind of focus on is which two of these fractions you're going to set equal in a proportion. You don't need all three of them, but you can set any two equal to each other and then solve for the missing part. So the first fraction needs to involve the missing part. So the part I'm trying to solve for is side A. Alright? So the first thing that I would set up is, and if I'm looking for side A, I need to set it up with the angle A. And so I would set up sine of angle A over side A as my first fraction. So I'm going to write sine, and the angle is 49, over side A is missing. So that's what we're going to find. Now, when you go to set that equal, okay, you need to set it equal to the side and angle that you have. Well, in this case, Okay, I'm not going to set it up with the sine of 102.3 over c because c is also missing. I need to set it up with the angle. I need to set it up with the angle and side combination that I have both of the numbers for, which would be the sine of 28.7 over, and side B is 27.4. All right? And so there's your setup. So now the only thing that's missing is A. I've got a proportion that I can solve for A by doing the cross product. A times the sine of 28.7. So that would be A times the sine of 28.7 equals. So then I need 27.4 times the sine of 49. And I'll just get all this in here and put it in the calculator one time at the end instead of using the calculator multiple times throughout the problem. So now I'm ready to divide by the sine of 28.7, the sine of 28.7. Okay, so that will cancel and leave me with A equals, which is what I want. And so to finish this now, I can go to my calculator. So like I say, if you save the calculator to the very end, you can just plug stuff in one time instead of multiple times. So we have our Desmos calculator here, and so I'm going to go 27.4 times the sine of 49. Okay, I should have put my fraction first there because it does that to me. So let me see, I'm going to have to start over here. Let's start with a fraction first. 27.4 times sine of 49. Okay, and I'm going to put that over the sine of 28.7. And so once again, got to make sure that we're in degrees. And once we are, we have the correct answer. So that side A now is going to be 43.06, whatever my units are. Okay? Did they specify? Yes, they did. Feet. All right. So that's 43.06 feet for that side. Okay. So now I've got one more side that I need to go in and try to finish up here, and that is going to be side C. So when I go in and set up for side C, then I can, first of all, my first fraction needs to be the fraction that involves side C. So it'll be the sine of 102.3. Sine of 102.3 over side C, which is missing. It'll remain as a C. And I can set that equal to the same one I set it equal to in the first side that I was trying to get, because I already have both of those numbers there. I actually have both of them now for the other one too. I could use that. So I could set it up with the, I could either set this equal to the sine of 28.7 over 27.4, or I could set it up with the sine of 49 over what I got for A, which was 43.06. Either one of those would work now that I have those values, but I'll just use the same one. So that's going to be set equal to the sine of 28.7 over the side opposite of that is 27.4. Okay. And so once again, I've got a proportion that I can now solve for C. Let's do the cross product. C times the sine of 28.7 equals to 27.4 times the sine of 102.3. And we're ready at this point to divide. So I'm going to be dividing both sides here by the sine of 28.7 by the sine of 28.7. And so from here, that'll cancel out and leave me with C equals, which is what I want. And so now we're ready for our calculator again. So we'll clear that off. Go ahead and write my fraction first. 27.4 times the sine of 102.3 on the top. On the bottom, we need the sine of 28.7. Oops. All right, and so we're still in degrees, so 55.75 feet is the correct answer for the length of side C. 55.75. All right, so there you go. Okay, so that example is of one where you had angle side, but if you have an example of where you have side angle, the same thing would occur. You'll set up your proportion. It would just be the fact that sometimes the missing part could be an angle. Like if you have two sides and one angle, like here, if you have two sides and one angle, instead of the missing part being one of the sides, the missing part could be one of the angles. And if that's the case, then you would just do inverse sine to both sides where necessary in order to get that angle that's missing, right? So the proportion is still set up the same way. You just may end up with an x here, in which case, like for example, if we had done this out and this was some regular number right here, okay, you would have had your x here. And so once you get everything divided out, then your last step would be to take the inverse sines of both sides in order to come up with the angle that you need. All right. So like I say, the setup with the proportion and everything is the same. The only difference would be where your missing value is, where your letter is. Okay. Sometimes it's wrapped up inside the sine function, in which case you would have to do inverse sine to both sides as your last step. Okay. So there you go.